All right, let's jump straight into today's fascinating topic. Today, we are talking about the coldest, most remote, and most mysterious place on Earth, Antarctica. You've probably heard about its freezing temperatures and endless silence. But did you know there's a rule there that will completely blow your mind the first time you hear it? I'm serious, this rule is genuinely strange. So let's find out what the story is. Here's the rule. On the snow in Antarctica, releasing any kind of bodily fluids, in simple words, urinating directly on the snow, is strictly prohibited. Yes, completely prohibited. Every visitor, researcher, or anyone traveling across this vast frozen land has to follow this strict rule without exception. It sounds a little strange, doesn't it? How can taking a simple bathroom break on the snow be met with such a strict restriction? Now you're probably wondering, why? Why would a place that's so isolated, so far removed from the rest of the world, have such a strict rule about something as ordinary as a bathroom break? Normally, if you're out in a barren mountain range or deep in the wilderness, nobody pays much attention to something like this. In a place where you can travel for miles without seeing another human being or even a single bird, this kind of biological restriction almost sounds like the mystery from a thriller movie. What difference could such a simple act possibly make in such a deserted place with such extreme weather? And yes, there are zero exceptions to this rule. Whether someone has been hiking continuously for hours or is traveling across the middle of the ice, the rule never changes. Not even the slightest exception is allowed. Understanding this strictness is very important because this isn't just about cleanliness or littering. The reason behind it is completely scientific and it's directly connected to Antarctica's unique climate and environmental conditions. To understand the science behind this rule, we first need to take a closer look at Antarctica itself. This place is completely different from the rest of the world because here, the snow essentially never melts. Antarctica is incredibly cold and surprisingly incredibly dry. The temperature stays so low and the air is so dry that the snow falling from the sky never turns into liquid water. Instead, it remains frozen permanently. So, what actually happens? Let's understand it step by step. First, extremely cold and extremely dry conditions. Second, because of that, the snow never melts. Third, since the snow doesn't melt, layer after layer keeps piling up over thousands of years. And fourth, and most importantly, as these thick layers build up, they trap tiny pockets of the air that existed at that exact moment in history. In other words, ordinary falling snow slowly turns into a perfect geological time capsule for our planet. Now, to study this trapped ancient air, scientists use something called ice cores. These are long, deep cylinders of ice that are drilled out using specialized machines. Inside them is the very same ancient air that became trapped when those snow layers first formed. You can think of these ice cores as historical climate time capsules. Extracting them is a major scientific mission because they help unlock some of Earth's oldest secrets. And do you know just how old this information can be? We're not talking about 10 years, 20 years, or even a single century. Deep within these layers of ice lies a record stretching back hundreds of thousands of years. Hundreds of thousands of years. This isn't just a block of ice, it's one of the most valuable historical records of our planet. Antarctica's freezing conditions have preserved this information in an almost perfectly pristine state for hundreds of thousands of years. When scientists study these ice cores, they're actually decoding the tiny air bubbles trapped inside the ice. Those microscopic bubbles contain remarkably accurate information about the climate, atmospheric gases, and environmental conditions of the distant past. Just imagine that. From nothing more than these tiny air bubbles, we can learn what our world looked like thousands and even hundreds of thousands of years before humans ever existed. It's literally like looking back into another age. Now let's come back to that strict bathroom rule. How does all of this connect? You see, the snow doesn't just trap ancient air, it also preserves almost anything that lands on its surface. If ash from an ancient volcanic eruption settles onto the snow, it becomes an incredibly valuable scientific marker for researchers. But on the other hand, if waste from a modern bathroom break ends up on that same snow, it becomes a destructive anomaly for the scientific record. And that's the biggest concern of all. Just imagine this. Years from now, a scientist spends countless hours drilling deep into Antarctica to recover an ice core. Then suddenly, they notice a strange yellow streak running through the cylinder of ice. The poor scientist stares at it in complete disbelief and asks, "Wait, what is this yellow line?" That's a situation no scientist would ever want to see. Finding modern human waste inside such an invaluable scientific record would be a major disaster for scientific research. So, this discussion brings us to a much deeper question. If just a single tiny drop has the power to permanently damage a historical time capsule that's been preserving Earth's story for hundreds of thousands of years, then just imagine the marks we're leaving behind every single day through our ordinary lives. What kind of legacy will future generations inherit from us? Antarctica's frozen landscape is incredibly fragile, and it reminds us that even in the most remote and seemingly empty place on Earth, one small human action can leave an impact that lasts for an incredibly long time. Makes you think, doesn't it?